Oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you, to talk to you. And I'm sorry that Cameron could not join us. I know it was last minute, but I really enjoyed reading about her and about you. And so I'm very excited about this interview.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Oh, Eric, I want to, just talk a little bit. First of all, I want to thank you for your service for our country. I know that you are retired, or well, you were a veteran, you were a Marine and served our country. So I want to thank you for just being faithful to your call.
I appreciate you being thankful.
Well, and I know that you guys started in 2014 a ministry for the fatherless. So tell us a little bit about your ministry first, until before we get into the movie that's going to be in theaters here soon.
Well, God moved me into ministry rapidly out of a business career. I was neck deep in corporate America, pursuing the American dream. And he plucked me out of that and into ministry in an area that was near and dear to my heart, which I grew up without a father being around much at all. And when he was around, it wasn't necessarily always a good thing. And so I found myself volunteering in the inner city with young men that were in a similar situation, mostly in underserved communities, poor communities with at risk kids, and most all of them are fatherless. And because of my own wounds as a kid and because of all the things I'd been through, I had all this compassion to pour into these young men and to be a spiritual dad to them, or to help partner them with mentors that can help raise them up. So that was sort of the genesis of our full-time ministry. And that's morphed into a bunch of things, from freeing slaves in Pakistan to sharing the good news of Jesus Christ everywhere I can possibly share it, specifically in dark places, raising up ministers for dark places that typically are places you wouldn't go. And we still continue to pour into the fatherless. And then this, of course, making movies and being able to tell really good and compelling stories to help people see truth and see light, even in the midst of a dark world.
This is incredible because I have learned, and it's even with my own walk, that your ministry usually is born from something that was significant in your walk. Whether it was in your life, for example, or in your case, as having not having a father figure growing up. And or I mean, so many people. I have a good friend who she started an international now human trafficking company, and she was trafficked, as a young girl.
Mm.
So I know that this is very true. But I wanted to ask you, how did you get into? Because you said that you're working also with human trafficking now. Was that just a evolution of what you were doing with fatherless teens? Or?
This might sound really weird. Maybe it won't. But, at the end of the day, we base our lives off of our quiet time with God, our relationship with Him, spending time with Him, hearing His voice, and then just obeying. If He says go here, we go there. And a lot of times we treat ministry like a business, right? It's like, I do this
Mhm.
one thing and that's the only thing I do. And, we can really pigeonhole ourselves and hold ourselves almost in like a form of slavery ourselves. And we're not freed up to just be able to come and go as God wants us to. And so in our ministry, that's one of the benchmarks of what we try to strive for, which is wherever God leads us, let's go there. And it just so happened for many years, I built a relationship with a pastor in Pakistan. And I recently went there about a month ago, and it utterly rocked my world. And while I
Mm.
was there, I got to meet slaves that are in these brick factories, and their lives are horrible. There's no other way
Mm.
to describe it. Their lives are absolutely miserable. And I just knew when I saw it, I was like, I have to do something about this. And so, yes, we share Christ with them. We share the hope that God has, that we're free in Christ, that whoever the Son sets free is free indeed. But how do you just talk about that, right? It's like, if I have the ability to help you for $1,000 to become a free person, literally a free person, no longer a slave, like how could I not try to strive to help you get free, not just in your spirit, but get free physically too, right? So In our ministry, I think that's really been it. God says, make a movie, we make a movie. Aye, aye, Captain. Let's go do that. And so we've got our hands in quite a few dishes, but the ones that we do have our hands in, we try to do with utter excellence. We try not to, scatter ourselves or spread ourselves too thin, and jeopardize the integrity of what we're doing. So, yeah, that's they're all their own little individual, beautiful stories of how we've gotten our hands dirty in each of these things.
That's incredible. I love it because, God knows your willing heart. And then whatever there is a need, like I said, he'll send you because he knows that you're faithful and that you're going to say yes. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. I appreciate all that you're doing. But today we want to talk about this new movie. We're releasing this interview pretty fast because the movie is releasing on May 13th and 15th. So everyone that's listening, you don't want to miss this. This is an incredible movie about some true stories about God's miraculous work in the world today. And the name of the movie is Show Me Your Glory. And it will be again in theaters May 13th through 15th. And I will put all the information on how to get the tickets on my show notes. But I wanted to ask you, Eric, how did this start? How was Show Me Your Glory born?
Yeah, well, we made another film a few years ago called The Fatherless Epidemic, which was just designed to bring awareness in America, to the fatherless epidemic, what it is, and how pretty much all of the ills in our society point to this thing. This is the major trend of most of our societal ills, is this broken family situation. And I had no idea how big that it would get. The movie was okay. It was a low budget film. We had no idea what we were doing, and we did our best, and we kind of struggled our way through it. But it wasn't the movie that caught my attention as much as the platform the movie allowed us to have to be able to share about the fatherless epidemic. We had, I don't know, it was 25 million impressions or something like this. And we were able to speak on these big platforms and talk about the love that God has for orphans, the love that God has for the fatherless, and how it's the church's responsibility to step up into that. So that was kind of the beginning of that. And we're like, man, we're never doing this again. Or if we do, it's going to be a long time from now, because that was exhausting. And then when a couple of months later, we felt utterly reinvigorated. It was like supernaturally, we went from utter exhaustion, I need a month off, to we're like, I think I'm ready to go again. We knew the Lord was preparing us for something. And then whammo, one day we were in our quiet time, and God and my wife and I both heard from him pretty much at the same time. But I'll say that I began to really get a stirring in my heart about a particular subject. And it wasn't just the supernatural, although that is a big part of it. We really felt compelled after reading Psalm 96:3. It says, declare the glory of the Lord among all the nations and proclaim his wonderful deeds among all people. And then I saw the story of Rahab, how she had heard what God had done, delivering the Israelites from Egypt and parting the sea. So she had heard the testimony of God that he had done all this, right? And because of that, she partnered with these Israelite spies. And then because of that, she was grafted into the family of God. And because of that, she eventually was in the bloodline of Jesus, the Messiah. So you see this story of absolute transformation that all began with this young lady, a prostitute no less, from Canaanite, hearing a testimony of how God was powerful. So we were like, we got to tell stories, And my wife and I scoured the earth. We're like, we're going to find the best stories we can find throughout the world. We're going to investigate them. My wife is a lawyer. I did a lot of investigative work in the Marine Corps. And we're like, we're going to make sure these can hold up in a court of law. We're going to do our best to make sure these are amazing stories that can be corroborated. There's evidence, there's testimony, there's eyewitnesses. Like, we want to see all of that. And so we did that. And then in the midst of that, a 20-year study that I've been in apologetics, which is the problem of evil. If God is all loving and all powerful, why does he allow so much evil and suffering in the world? That literally crashed into this idea of sharing miraculous testimonies. Like, the question came up, well, if God is still doing this stuff, which he clearly is, right? I mean, millions of people, right? There's a survey, it's like 11 countries on 2 continents reported 200 million people that said, I have experienced a miracle personally. Even if 90% of those are false, you still have a couple million testimonies of people experiencing a miracle. And that's just 11 countries. Think about throughout the whole world. Think about each of us in our own lifetime. God is clearly still doing miracles. God is still in the supernatural business. So if that's true, why doesn't he do more miracles and alleviate some of the suffering we see? And we had to explore that, and we do in the film. So that's our log line, right? When the supernatural crashes into human suffering, what do you get at that intersection? And that's why our movie is not just about entertainment, although it will entertain you. It's a movie that will transform you.
That's incredible. Well, first of all, this movie is based on true stories. I love how the Lord works because just 2-3 weeks ago, I interviewed Lee Strobel about his new book. I don't know if you've heard of it, the Supernatural, Seeing the Supernatural. And he comes from an investigative reporter viewpoint, and just bringing a lot of this supernatural phenomena, things like near-death experiences, angels, demons, and he explores that through a scientific lens and and biblical truth as well. And then now God puts you and Cameron on my lap, for this interview, which also explored the supernatural, miraculous things that God is still doing in the world today. Now, I know that you share, is it 8? How many stories did you share in the movie? Is it 8? Did I
There are
read
8
right?
stories in the movie, and there are
Mhm.
16 in the book that releases at the same time as the movie.
Okay, so you wrote, yes, you wrote a book first, right, about the stories that you have heard. Now, let me ask you this: can you share, like, just so the listeners can hear just one example of one of the miraculous stories featured in the book and in the movie?
Well, there are 3 categories of miracles that we delve into. The first are miraculous healings, where again, we've vetted these stories. We've looked at scans, we've talked to witnesses, we've really made sure these are the real deal. And we've also made sure that there was no medical intervention in between. So they were sick or something radical was going on in their body, or they were injured and then they weren't all of a sudden days later, right? Or years later. And there was no medical intervention. It was prayer that separated those two. And then category 2 are miraculous encounters. These are miraculous encounters where a person experiences something totally radical. They encounter the divine face to face a lot of times, or it's a near death experience or some kind of vision. And out of that, they are utterly transformed. I'm talking like they were heading in this direction. They have this encounter, and then their life is changed. And these people have been walking in a changed state for a very long period of time. So there's this sustained moral change that we see. And then category 3, it hits that question I talked about at the intersection of suffering and the miraculous, which I appreciate that most of the movies we're seeing and books we're seeing, they delve into this too. Lee Strobel's very faithful to dive into that in A Case for Miracles. And Billy Hallowell, a friend of mine, he just put out a movie on the miraculous as well. He goes into it. And we do too. We spend the most amount of time on this one, which is it's not that these people got the miracle they prayed for. They didn't. But what's supernatural about it is how they responded to it. Right? When you're in your darkest hour and everything's falling apart, your whole world is crashing down on you. And yet the way you respond to it is utterly miraculous. It's bizarre. In fact, it's so miraculous, it's so bizarre that everyone around you notices, and it's beautiful. And it gives us hope. It's one of those things where I think when you go see the movie, I always describe it, it's like you're going to have an encounter with hope. You're going to walk out crying, laughing, smiling, and you're going to want to talk about this movie for a long time to come.
It is a beautiful feature, and you guys don't want to miss it. It's incredible. It's really good. But I want to ask you now. I know that you are studying for your doctorate now in apologetics, right? So, like, from a theology standpoint, why do you think that miracles and suffering are so intertwined?
Let's take one of the stories, and I'll circle back to your last question. You have a Hezbollah terrorist, a Hezbollah soldier who's filled with zeal to serve Allah to the point where he's killing people in the name of Allah. He thinks that he's doing Allah a favor by killing people who are not holding to the Quran, or they're preaching Christian propaganda in their eyes. And he has this miraculous encounter, and guess what? He abandons his faith. Well, from his story, you see that his story is encapsulated in suffering, right? That's where most of supernatural stuff is birthed out of. So imagine a world, right? Let's do philosophy for a second. Let's imagine a world where there's very little suffering, if at all, any suffering. And then you imagine, okay, well, what kind of supernatural stuff are we going to see? If there's no suffering and there's no evil, what kind of miracles would we see? Like the gallon of milk miraculously fills back up, or someone, levitates, that's a cool trick. But what would you see, right? So the reason things are supernatural, as Sean McDowell so aptly states it, right, is because we have regularity in the way the world works. And what is that regularity? The regularity is that we all will get sick, we will all suffer, and eventually every last one of us will die. This life is intimately connected to suffering. It's a part of our story here. And so because we know that's a regularity in the way the world works, when a miracle happens, it's this weird anomaly. It's a weird blip, right? So you can't separate the supernatural from suffering. That is exactly what the supernatural really looks like. Most of the time, the supernatural comes out of suffering, because that person who's really sick, or they have a child that's suffering, they're on their knees, and through their tears, they're crying out to the God of the universe, please spare my child, please spare my child. And it's in those cries, not always, but sometimes, we actually get to see radical miracles take place.
Very true. Very true. Well, listen, I know that in this documentary, you were careful to engage the information, the insight of experts. So you talked to doctor. You just mentioned Sean McDowell and Greg Cood, and they were. Did I pronounce his name correctly?
Greg Koukl from
Coco.
Reason or Stand to Reason. Yep.
Coco, yes, from Stand to Reason. So, what kind of insights are we expected to see from them in this documentary?
Yeah, I think it's really important, as I debate people and have intelligent discussions with atheists and these sorts of things. What often happens is we get all caught up in our mind, and it's all about these mental gymnastics, right?
Mhm.
And we didn't want to do that, but we also did not want to neglect the intellect. God gave us minds, and He has given us the ability to reason. So we really, in this film, wanted to address the apologetics. We wanted to engage in the intellectual side of things, but we didn't want to miss the heart. So we wanted to get both sides, the head and the heart. So we've got Greg Koukl, who's a brilliant man. We have Sean McDowell, also an amazing philosopher and professor. And so both of them really hold up both of those sides incredibly well. They don't just give you the reason, they also share heartfelt issues and that side of things. And then we wanted to address the heart some more. And so we included a pastor. We wanted a pastoral perspective on this and what suffering looks like biblically. And then we also brought in someone right in the middle who, Greg Keener, is the leading expert on the subject of miracles. In fact, he's been in Lee Strobel's stuff. He was in Billy Hallowell's stuff. I mean, pretty much anybody that makes anything about the miraculous, they're calling up Craig. Craig Keener is an amazing man, brilliant man, and done more research on the subject than anybody else. So, and then last but not least, not as important, my wife forced me to be in the film as well as a subject matter expert, and to somewhat narrate along the way. And so you'll have to put up with seeing me on screen a couple of times.
I'm sure it'll be great. Everybody's going to enjoy it, because these are, again, they are one of the reasons. It's funny because the same week that your agent reached out to me to feature your movie, I had a different agent ask me to feature a different movie about miracles and and all those things. And there was a distinct difference that to me was very important. As a former, I wasn't an atheist, I was an agnostic, but as a former agnostic, before I came to Christ, um, I I firmly believe that Christianity is really faith backed up by a lot of science, a lot of the things that we can explain in this world. And so I was careful to choose your movie and your story because of that. You were careful to address certain questions that we should have answers for, and so I love that you are engaging the experts, that people who can explain certain things from a theological standpoint, from an even scientific standpoint. And that's so important to me personally, other than just, there's a lot of voodoo out there, a lot of things that's like they don't hold water. So I
Yeah.
love that.
There's a lot of films out there that entertain, and like I said, I do believe this film's entertaining. My 5-year-old son, who has zero attention span, has watched it multiple times. He loves it. I mean, it's action packed. It's going to keep you on your toes. It's going to keep you guessing. It's one of those things. We just had our red carpet premiere, and as an artist, I'm insecure sometimes. I'm like, man, I'm my own worst critic. Are people going to love this? And I think it's good. I think that it's powerful, but will they like it? And at the red carpet event the other night, we had 350 people show up, and the reactions were insane. In fact, most all the people are going to the theater and they're going to watch it again because there's so much to ingest. But not only is it entertaining, but it's going to hit you square between the eyes. We've heard so many people say, man, this film, it restored my childlike wonder and faith in God. Like my awe of God is restored. And I had another person come up to me, and I've heard this quite a few times, like, I need to be more faithful to steward my own story. We don't have to be scholars. We don't have to be seminarians. We could be brand new Christians that know very little, and we just have to be good at telling our own story. Like, hey, I was this, now I'm this, this is why, and this is why I believe. This is how God has made a difference in my life. This is how Christ has made a difference in my life. So having people tell us that, this has inspired me to be a better steward of my story. And then I do think it's a story for skeptics and seekers to get answers and to wrestle with the tough questions. And for those that are saints, we found this to be true. This is a film where you want to bring the person you wanted to share your faith with, but you're maybe a little apprehensive to do so. This is bring the neighbor, bring the coworker, bring the friend, bring them to the theater with you and say, hey, I'll pay for your ticket. I'll bring you with me. It's going to be great. I want you to see this. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. And it's going to open up incredible conversation. It's going to hit them square between the eyes. We saw people give their life to Christ right there in the theater at the red carpet event. So we know this film has God in it. I mean, it's not just us being creative and working with God, but he's working through this film in a powerful way.
One of the things that I love about stories like Show Me Your Glory is that it will address, it will help people to see that a lot of these people, even who experienced the miracles, they were people who struggled with the questions that we all have about God at some point in time in our lives, right? So I want you to talk to someone out there who feels that they have been abandoned by God because they are going through so much suffering, and they feel like they have abandoned. They were abandoned by the Lord. Talk to them on how this movie and these stories that you're featuring can help them see how much God loves them and that he is there for them.
Yeah, that's the truth. Our film was birthed out of our own stories, right? When I served in the Marine Corps, I went to the Iraq War, and the things I had to do, the things I saw there were horrendous, and they beat me up. I had a crisis of faith. And then shortly after that, there was the Indian Ocean earthquake that led to a tsunami, killing 250,000 people. I watched my father, who I was reconciled to, we became really close friends, get cancer, terminal cancer, and suffer tremendously for 3 years and end up passing away. My wife discovered her mom's body the day after Christmas, dead on the floor at a pretty young age. Her father has passed. My wife's twin sister has battled infertility for years. I've been diagnosed with some things physically, and God's healed some of them not. My wife was a kidney donor. Her one kidney was failing. God has healed that. So we've seen some miraculous things happen, but we've also gone through so many things, and the list it goes on and on and on. And I'll tell you, this is what's wonderful about God and about our faith is a lot of religions, it's blasphemy to wrestle with God. It's blasphemy to question him. How dare you question God? Our God invites us into that conversation. He says, yes, those are the good questions. Just, I already know your heart. I already know your thoughts. Come to me with them, right? Come to me with them. And the book of Psalms, it gives us permission. If we read the book of Psalms and we see the cries of David, one minute he's rejoicing and dancing, and the next minute he's, how long, O Lord? The book of Lamentations, how long, O Lord? I mean, this is what it's about. The book of Job. And so we can learn to trust God completely in the midst of our suffering, even if we don't have all the answers. But we can certainly receive his peace as we wrestle and we're honest with him in relationship. That's what a child does with a loving parent, a perfect father, is we wrestle with them. Why? Please help me understand. And he may not give all the answers, but one thing our Father in heaven will do is he'll give you a hug. He will give you peace. He will give you comfort. He will give you what you need, and it'll sustain you. And he'll remind you that it's not about this life, it's about the next. And he'll whisper in your ear in your quiet time. He'll say, listen, my child, I know this is hard, but I promise you it's worth it. Your momentary light affliction is producing within you an immeasurable weight of eternal glory. It is worth it. I promise you it's worth it. Just trust me. I know you don't understand everything. That's okay. Just trust me. It's going to be okay. And we cling to him in those moments, and somehow we make it. And guess what? It will be worth it. It'll all be worth it. And there'll come a day when there are no more tears. There's no more sickness. There's none of that. This is our one chance to suffer for his glory. This is our one chance to actually live by faith. When we move on to the next life, there's no more faith. This is our one chance. We get to live by faith and say, God, I don't see you, and sometimes I don't even feel you, but I'll believe and I'll trust you. And I know you're faithful. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm putting my life in your hands. And you know what? You can't lose. He's always been faithful to me as I do that. But it takes us being honest with him, right? And crying out to him. Don't do what Adam and Eve did in the garden and run and hide and cover your shame. Nope. Turn around, look straight at him and run to him. Climb up in his lap, talk to him, keep seeking him. Do not give up. I promise you, you have not been forgotten by God. There is nobody that can pluck you out of his hand. There's nothing that can separate you from his love, period. It's a promise. You can hang your hat on it.
I see suffering as an opportunity for you to get to know your Father in a deeper way. I was just this morning reading in Philippians, about Paul is just talking about that he has had a lot, and he has been in want, and he can do all things through Christ who strengthens him. And he's just encouraging the Philippians that he has everything. He actually says, I have everything. And he's writing from prison, right? So it's like we here in the West especially, we see life in a very different prism that Paul, even, the one that we go to all the time, all his letters we go to get encouragement from, he understands what you are saying, that it is in our suffering that we can find the Lord to be faithful and find the strength in him and get to know him in a closer way. And that is priceless, right? You don't ever, if you walk with the Lord through a trial, you don't ever come the other side of the trial without having a deeper understanding of who he truly is, right? It's incredible. Well, one thing that I know is that we talked about the fact that you guys wrote, you and Kameron were together, Show Me Your Glory. So a book that's coming out at the same time, right? It's being released together with the movie. But tell me how this book complements the movie.
Well, we did things backwards. Sometimes people write a book and then make a movie from the book, but we did the opposite. What we found was that we had so much material and so many amazing stories. Sitting down with our subject matter experts, all of the content we had, we could have easily made a 10-hour movie. And so the only reason in the editing room that I felt comfortable cutting certain things out was my wife would remind me. She's like, we can put this in the book. It's okay. Like, this won't be put into a closet. Where no one will ever see it. Like, they'll see it, they'll read it. And so the book is almost 400 pages, but it's really hard to put down
Wow.
because, yeah, and you can read a few pages a day and just you'll go into your day with a smile because you'll receive some answers. I mean, we wrestle with some incredibly tough questions, but we also don't shy away from the instances where God did answer prayer and He did something incredible. Even in my own story, I have encountered God and I've experienced miracles. So I've actually experienced all three categories. I've had miraculous, supernatural encounters with God that forever changed my life. I've also experienced physical, miraculous healing. And then I've had plenty of times where I was begging God, please remove this thorn from my side. And He said, no, my grace is sufficient. I'm leaving that thorn in your side. There's a purpose, there's a reason, and my grace is sufficient. I'll take care of you through it. It'll keep you humble. It's going to show you something. It's going to teach you something. It's going to prepare you. So I think the book is one of those things. You're going to see the movie and you're going to be like, I got to see it again. I've seen it 50 times, and I'm finally at the point now where I don't want to see it anymore. So I say people are going to want to see this movie at least 2 or 3 times. They're going to want to show it to people, but then I think they're going to want more. And I think that's probably the reason the Lord had us write the book, is you're going to want more, and you're going to be like, man, I got to hear more about that story. Because in the movie, we have an hour and 53 minutes to tell 8 stories. We leave out some things, right? So one of our stories in particular, I mean, we had to cut it down to about a third of what it really is. And you're going to fall in love with at least 1 or 2 of the characters. I know I always ask everybody, I'm like, hey, who's your favorite character? Everyone has a different favorite character. You're going to want to hear the rest of their story. And if it's just to pick up the book so you can hear the rest of that person's story, I think it'll benefit people to do so.
Well, listen, this movie is incredible. I want to read the book now, so that I know a little bit more about each story and your story as well. And of course, like I said, I'm going to put a link to everything on our show notes, so you guys can go there and look for this information, so that you can actually also purchase tickets ahead, because it's coming out now 13th or 15th in theaters, and you need to go and support that. Well, Eric, as we get towards the end of our conversation, let me ask you, what do you want audience to gather from this movie and to come out of it? What is your purpose for this movie today? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for the saints, those that believe, I hope they're encouraged. I hope that they have a big smile on their face and there's some awe that's restored. I even hope that they're emboldened to be able to pray for people and do what the Word of God says when someone's sick, that their knee-jerk reaction wouldn't be, oh, got to go to the doctor. But instead, like, hey, I don't know if God's going to choose to do something here, but let me put my hands on you and pray for you and ask, and let's see if the Father is willing to do a miracle right here. And you know what? He might do that. And he might very well do that right in front of you if we just be willing to pray. And for those that are seekers, I think that they're going to find some very real and substantial evidence for not only the existence of God, but who God is in Jesus. And for the skeptic, I think we provide substantial evidence, once again, to help them overcome some of their hurdles. Now, there's skeptics out there, no matter what. I mean, you could provide a cure for cancer and they're going to criticize it. There's nothing that you can do to convince certain people. But this is more for those skeptics that they want to believe. They just have a hard time getting over some of those intellectual hurdles. I think this will be a really great opportunity for them to grow in their faith. So I hope that people are transformed all over the nation. I hope that people give their life to Christ right there in the theater all over the nation. I hope that this is an opportunity where people, again, can bring those in their sphere of influence that God has entrusted them to, right? Everybody is a missionary. Everybody. Every person that is a Christian on this planet has a sphere of influence that they have been entrusted with. And God wants you to be a light to those people and to reach those people and to share the good news with those people. What easier way than to say, hey, do you want to come with me to the theater on Wednesday night, and I'll meet you there at 6:30, and I want you to see this film. It's going to be epic. I think it's incredibly easy to do that, and it's going to be low-lying fruit. I think you're going to be impressed with what God does there.
I agree with you. And listen, if you're my listener, I know I have a lot of pastors who listen to my show or watch my show on YouTube. You need to go to showmeyourglory.com, purchase tickets, invite your church, invite your friends to go to it. This movie was 100% funded by donors through Abba Heart Ministries. So, I mean, we go support movies that have millionaires who are funding, this millionaire companies in Hollywood that fund. Let's go and support this movie that has a heart for God and his people to advance the kingdom of God. Let's support them. I will put all this information again in my show notes, but if you're just listening in your car, it's Show Me Your Glory. It's the name of the movie, showmeyourglory.com. You can't miss it. Pretty easy. Listen, Eric, what a blessing to talk to you. May God bless you greatly, you and Kameron, in your ministries and in everything that you do. Maybe this be just the beginning of something glorious for his glory and for your good as well. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you and bless you. I'm praying that God will comfort you. I know this is a challenging season for you as well. So I pray that his comfort and his peace is almost tangible for you.
I appreciate that, Eric, very much. Thank you.